So the Fed has been plagued by deeply disturbing ethics scandals in recent years involving at least 6 Fed officials. So it's critical that the next chair have no financial conflicts, none.
Okay, before we watch Senator Warren grill Mr. Warsh here, let's talk about why it's important for the head of the Fed to not have investments. Because the first thing I thought was, why would a guy worth $100 million, he has a $100 million portfolio, why would he give all that up for a $250,000 a year job? That doesn't make any sense at all. And then when I did a minor dive into it, it became crystal clear. The first thing to understand is that federal officials have access to Class 1 FOMC information. What is Class 1 FOMC information, you might ask? I am glad that you asked because I just memorized it so I could tell you. It's the Federal Open Market Committee. And these are the people who decide things like interest rates. It is the most sensitive market-moving information in the economy, when liquidity will tighten and when banks will be examined or sanctioned. They also decide when emergency lending will be deployed. So if you have an inside track to this information, you can make a lot of money on the stock market, and people do. And then the question isn't whether he's taking this job so he can have an inside track to make a lot of money, because that's obviously what's going on. It's whether or not he's working for us or not. Where exactly do his loyalties lie?
You have more than $100 million in investments that you have refused to disclose to ethics officials and to the public.
Okay, a lot of people should be worried here, so let's try to break it down in a way that makes it painfully obvious. Refusing to disclose these investments to officials and to the public isn't just uncool, it is a system failure. Now, disclosure is mandatory, legally mandatory, but it's got holes big enough to drive a truck through. Things like hedge funds and private equities and merged accounts often fall into a gray area. Also, things like NDAs can block disclosure. Blind trusts and pooled investments can also muddy the waters. And of course, there is ethics waivers that can be handed out discreetly. So why does it feel like nobody cares? The reason why is because the people who should care and are tasked to care is Congress, and they are often invested and connected and juiced in. They benefit from the same system. So it's almost like it's one of the major reasons to get elected, not to actually do public service, but to control the flow of information so you can make investments to enrich yourself. And that's not a partisan issue. That is on both sides. There's only a handful of people in Congress fighting against this kind of thing. The Trump administration is just supercharging it to another level. And they're doing it in the open because they know nobody's going to do anything about it.
So let me ask, do the Juggernaut Fund or the THSDFS LLC invest in any companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles established by Jeffrey Epstein?
She just dropped the E-bomb. I am very interested in the answer.
Senator Warren, thank you. So let me first share a point of agreement with you. The Fed has 2 tools. One is its monetary policy, and the second is its credibility. And the scandals that you talked about, the ethics problems you talked about, went to the core of the credibility that has hurt the Fed.
Could you answer my
fast-talking snake oil salesman
question, please? I asked. You have $100 million in undisclosed assets. And what I'm asking is, are any of those with this outfit that invests in companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles set up by Jeffrey Epstein? It's a yes or no question.
Who thinks he's going to answer with a yes or no?
Senator, I have worked tirelessly with the ethics officials at the...
I knew it. Nobody cares how hard you've been working with the ethics committee, who's not going to hold you accountable. And to me, this is where the ethics committee just becomes a warm blanket to cover their asses.
Office of Government Ethics.
And you have not
come to an ethics agreement with them
$100 million
and have agreed, Senator, to sell all of
That's
my
not
financial
my
assets,
question. Mr.
including
Warsh, are
the
you
Duquesne
refusing
assets.
to tell
Yes, for a $250,000 a year government salary job. Did you want a G-Man badge or something?
us if you have investments, for example, in vehicle setup to advance Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're telling us? You just won't tell us?
Senator, what I'm telling you is that those assets that you represent at Juggernaut will be sold if I'm
right.
confirmed
Let me
before I take
follow up.
office and sign the oath of office.
Let me follow
Translation. That's right. I'm not going to tell you.
up on that. Will you at least disclose how you plan to disclose and divest these secret assets? I'm sure you understand that the public might question your motives if, for example, billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller, who you honored in your opening statement, and who makes a living guessing what the Fed will do next, cuts you a massive check for $100 million as you take the oath of office to become the new Federal Reserve Chair.
If you earn $250,000 a year, you would make $100 million by the year 2426. 400 years. That's longer than the United States has existed. Earning $250,000 a year, which is already top tier salary, would take 4 centuries. A Fed official can move markets and make millions overnight. A conflict of interest here is not a hypothetical. It's guaranteed. When someone with 400 years worth of salary takes this job, you don't shrug. You don't say it's some kind of an ethics paperwork problem. You ask questions, you demand transparency, and you get loud. You even use that big man voice I was talking about. Right? Be excellent to each other, my friends, because that is the one thing we can actually control.